So what I do is I get them to break themselves up into groups, depending on the number of students, between four and six, depending on the number of students, as I say, in the group. And then they're a spin team. So now you're going to imagine yourself into the role of being a spin team. By the time we get there, they know what a spin team is, they know how they work, they know what they do, etc., etc. It was the brief originally of designing a course that was for journalists and PRs, putting them together and getting them to, because they're going to work together in the real world. That's the point. But of course, journalists claim that nobody spins them, and they hate PRs. They don't work with PRs, and there's this tension between them, and they don't really want to. So this makes them actually work together and to realize that actually they're doing the same thing, just like two sides of the same coin, actually. That's what I'm going to get them to understand. The first half of the course is the theory bit, okay? There's a book. I get them to read the book, hopefully. But what I've done is I give a lecture, in which I do chapter by chapter, right? The lecture is where I make it easy for them to understand that chapter. So I kind of run through it step by step. This is the essence of it. Right. Then there's also, they have to then read the chapter. And then I also post on Blackboard a set of questions to guide their reading. So if you follow the lecture and you put the questions, then you read it, voila, it should all make sense to you. All right. So it's kind of like a guided way of teaching them how to read a book. And they always say, do I really have to read a whole chapter? Many chapters, actually. And then anyway, they do it. Okay. And then if that leads to the first assessment, which is your traditional assignment, a written assignment, which makes them apply the theory. So it's not testing whether they've read it or whether they understand the theory. It actually, do you understand that theory and can you apply it to a question? It says, so can you identify successful and unsuccessful spin? Okay, and then you can only do that if you've really paid attention and read the book. Otherwise, you just simply can't do it. And it becomes really apparent very quickly who hasn't read the book. That's pretty much in the middle of the semester. And then I say, right, now you've got all this knowledge in your head. Now we're going to do something with the knowledge. Now we're going to go into the kind of practical end of things. And then they have to identify a problem, a communication problem, in much the way that a spin team would identify Yarra's communication problem. So I get them to identify a problem. They have to negotiate with the tutor, or with me if I'm the tutor, okay? So they bring their problem. This is what I think is a problem. Sometimes they don't even get that right, sometimes they do. But anyway, I make them eventually reach the point when they have identified a problem that I go, yep, that's a problem. And then they have to solve it. They've just done it. And one of them would say, Malcolm Turnbull has a problem selling himself.
Sure.
Yep, that's a problem.
Yep.
What would you do? If you were his spin doctor, what would you do about that? That's a real issue. Okay.
Yep, great.
So it's that kind of thing.
Yep.
Okay. Then I make them do two presentations. The one is where they go through doing pretty much what any spin team would do, is where they have to analyze the problem. So they systematically break it down into all its component bits, and all the different players. And if you would just analyze who's on my team, who's not on my team, what have I got going for me, what have I got and I'm really in trouble with, etc. And lay it out, map the whole area for yourself. So they do a presentation where they just map the terrain. Okay, that's the first presentation. And then obviously that gives me the opportunity, as well as if they are making a mess of it, I can go and say, no, you didn't do that real crash. What? These are the sort of issues, fix it, sort of thing. Then the second presentation is solve the problem. Okay.
Yep.
As a spin team, show me what you would do and make a presentation unpacking exactly what you would do to solve that problem and see if you can do it. Or you might actually come to the conclusion this is just irresolvable, actually. But then show me why. Show me, this is irresolvable. There's nothing I can do here. Then the third assessment, which is the one I added this semester, was a self-reflection. Just because I wanted to see what they thought they'd learnt and at what points they'd learnt and what worked and what didn't. So the first assessment can only come after they've got all that knowledge. And indeed, all that second stuff can only come after they've got all that knowledge. So one of the issues that I've constantly had is that the first assignment comes pretty late in the course. Much later than it would normally. I would normally have given them something much earlier, but there's no point. Because it's like that's the transition moment, and it's fixed by how much knowledge there is. Okay? And when they look at the second assessment, they go, what the hell is that? and they freak out. They keep wanting to know, but I'm not going to be able to do that. So I kind of always come back. Right from the beginning, I say, don't worry about the second assessment. I know it looks weird, but trust me, by the time you get there, you will know how to do it. I promise you'll know how to do it. So just relax. Just worry about the first bit now. And then the other thing I do is before they actually do the second assessment, I spend 2 weeks running through a case study, showing them how to do it. So so I say, can you see those 2 weeks? They blocked off, and I'll tell you exactly what to do. Don't panic. It's all cool. Okay. So that's the kind of downside, is that in the beginning, they kind of go, this is very unfamiliar, and I'm a little worried about this. What are you doing here? Yeah, I suppose the other thing I do is, because I'm asking them to go out into the world and find stuff from the real world and bring it back to me, what I've also done now is on Blackboard, I've posted things that worked well in the past, when students have found really good examples and good case studies. I've put up a list of a whole bunch of stuff like that and said, these are the kind of things that you can do, which just helps them think about what it is that you're trying to get them to think about. You don't just let them go away and do their project. It's like they have to come and negotiate the topic as well, because otherwise it's not fair. They choose, if someone chooses something that's stupid, they're just going to fail. If the groups are not working, I also tell them they must come to me early on and tell me. Yep. Okay. But again, at the end, I get an assessment. Everybody in the group has to assess everybody else in terms of how much work did they do, so that I know who did work and who didn't work in the group. Mm-hmm. Yep. The fact that they know that everybody else is going to report back on them, and I say to them, look, what happens is this. I've been down this track. I know what's going to happen. If you're the person in the group who does something wrong, what is going to happen is everybody else in the group is going to tell me this. And I can tell the difference between a group where there's just a clash between two people and one other person tells me, I don't like this person. And when everybody tells me, you didn't work, there's a difference. And believe me, I know it straight away. And they go, oh, yeah, okay. I also make every group evaluate every other group. Which also makes them sit there, not bugger off. And that's one of the things I say. I want you to evaluate how well they're presenting. Like, you, the audience, and when you see the ones that work and the ones that don't work, that in itself just teaches you something. It teaches you how to be a good communicator. Because when you see things that don't work, you know, hell, I'm never going to do that myself. When I first started this, the classes used to be about 65. And that was perfect. I mean, it was just so easy. Largely because you really could almost teach them individually. So when they had those individual projects, you could really get into it with them. Now what happened is it then became a course which just blew out, 250, 260, and that's ridiculous. So you lose that. There's no question. There's no way that I can give them that kind of individual tuition. When it's going wrong, I can't sit them down and unravel the whole thing for them. Even the ones that have done the assignment and done well at it, it's still kind of theoretical, and they sort of understand it as theory, but it's not the same as understanding it. When they're forced into the situation of actually applying it to a real example, they go, oh, like that's how this thing works. And a lot of them come and say that. They actually come and say, I like just the penny dropped. Like somewhere in about the middle of somewhere between the first and the second presentation, I went, I see what this is all about. I see how people do this now. You're dealing with those kind of folks who they don't want to do the theory bit, and they avoid it. They just want to get their hands onto technology and play with stuff. And you go, well, yeah, but you do need to think about this as well. In fact, what I always say is, so if you're a journalist, it's actually it's not just the quality of the program, it's the questions you ask.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, you're in trouble. What I think they learn as well is how all these communication jobs, whatever they are all interconnected. And it really is one set of skills.
Yeah.
And I think that the penny drops then as well, that hang on, we're all kind of doing the same thing here. And it's just, there really is one set of skills, and if you can communicate, basically. So other lecturers, they always say that students go around saying, that's the course at the university that I've liked the best. That's the one I remember. And I have students contacting me like literally years later going, only now that I'm working, I go, that's just absolutely, that's just what it's like. And it's like, now I understand. Wow.